Tomorrowland Transit Authority Metroliner nonstop, now departing Rocket Tower Plaza Station for a round-trip Super Skyway tour.
Here's to the future. Here's to the future and you.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Let's listen to the land we all love. Nature's plan will shine above. Listen to the land. Listen to the land.
Ole, ole, it's showtime.
WDW Radio, your information station. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mongello, and this is show number 277 for the week of June 3rd, 2012. 30 years ago, a Disney film was released that would forever change the science fiction genre, as well as animation, video gaming, and the lives of many young geeks like myself. Smart, stylish, and fun, the game grid of Tron was groundbreaking, and recently, Tron was reborn with the Tron Legacy film and the Tron-a-Rail at Walt Disney World in late 2010, Electronica at Disneyland, and this week, the story continues on Disney XD with Tron Uprising. One of the original film stars was Cindy Morgan, who played the dual role of Laura and Yori, and she joins me this week in an exclusive interview. We talk about her career and roles in iconic films like Caddyshack and, of course, Tron, as she shares stories of the making of the films, the Tron phenomenon, her fans, and much more. I'll then have the answer and winner for last week's Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week and pose a new one for your chance to win a Disney prize package. And then I'll have just a few quick announcements before playing more of your voicemails at the end of the show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show.
Hey, it's the big master control program everybody's been talking about. Greetings, program!
I've got a little challenge for you, Sark. A new recruit. He's a tough case, but I want him treated in the usual manner. Train him for the games, let him cook for a while, and blow him away.
I am undoubtedly and unabashedly a child of the 80s. And notwithstanding my hypercolor t-shirt, my Michael Jackson jacket, my parachute pants, Capezios, and Ray-Bans, I also grew up in video arcades and on the music and movies of the decade. And even today, my iPhone is filled with nothing but 80s and some Disney music. But I also love the movies as well. And two of my favorites, one comedy and the other sci-fi, included characters that were every teenage boy's dream woman. The beautiful, carefree Lacey Underall in Caddyshack, and the equally beautiful Laura and Yori, who existed inside a video game in Disney's original Tron movie. And I don't know who I had a bigger crush on, but it doesn't matter, because both characters were played by the lovely and talented Cindy Morgan, and after 30 years, I finally have the pleasure and opportunity to sit down and chat with her. Cindy, I was tempted to sing the I Was Born to Love You, I Was Born to Lick Your Face song.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
But instead, I will say greetings, program, and welcome to WDW Radio.
There you go. Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. Lou, you've got a lot more personality than you did with the first time I met you at the table at MegaCon. This is really interesting.
I'm sure that I was like many of the 44-year-old guys that walk up to your table that instantly become 14 again.
And that's exactly what happened. It's so sweet and it's so charming, but so true. Yeah, it's the sweetest thing to watch, and it's kind of funny because I can see, guys approaching. Well, I'm going to say this to Lacey, and I'm going to say that to Yori. And as they get closer and closer, I start seeing that 14-year-old little boy, and I just smile, and then it's all over. So.
It's funny and embarrassing because it's true.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's charming. You've got to know it is. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, and I'm glad you took the time to actually set up an actual interview like this. So that because at a show, my head would be going and swiveling in different directions. And this is great. We could actually finish a sentence, maybe even a conversation.
Yeah, we met briefly at the D23 Expo in California. We met again, like you said, over at MegaCon, but it's great to be able, and I wasn't kidding when I said, I sort of waited 30 years to be able to talk to you because I was a huge fan. I'm a fan first of both films. And look, I like I said, I was a child of the 80s, and you can interpret that very easily to mean that I was a total nerd. I loved watching sci-fi movies like Tron over and over again.
Oh, dear.
Rumor has it, Cindy, and I cannot imagine this, that you were sort of a bit of a nerd growing up too. And I will tell you, no girl in the computer club looked like you.
Well, I was a nerd, and those super thick glasses I'm wearing in Tron are stunt glasses because I walked in wearing my real glasses in the morning because your eyes get tired, for God's sake. And the director saw them and said, "That's great. We love the look." So the prop department made me a pair of glasses to wear in the film, which is just screaming hilarious. And yeah, I was a nerd, and I was actually going to go to the Illinois Institute of Technology initially to study mechanical engineering, and was accepted. I went to the open house, but I came out of 12 years of Catholic school, and the last 4 were all girls, and I wasn't ready. I was stammering, and so I made a hard left turn and went to Northern Illinois, majored in speech, thank God, and communications, and changed everything. But I still got to use some technical background when I worked in radio and television. I got my FCC license and did morning drive in Chicago, which was a great experience, and ran camera and sound, which helped me when I got to Caddyshack.
Yeah, so, and it's funny because we sort of had parallel lives growing up wearing thick glasses and going to all boys or all girls Catholic schools. But
Okay, so it's like, it was a whole different, and by the time I got to college, I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but here it is. I found out within a month I really didn't have to crack a book. I pretty much knew how to answer the question by the way it was asked. We had a very good curriculum in high school, but I learned about everything else. I learned about social skills, and I got 3 jobs in my field while I was in school. I had 2 jobs in radio and 1 in television, and one of those radio jobs was a commercial job, which helped, as you know, very important. Work gets work, so that helped me get the next job.
Yeah, so how do you go from growing up with the thick glasses with the tape on it and pocket protector to becoming the actress?
Clearly, I got over it. I got into communications, and I wasn't a good speaker. I was a terrible speaker. I had a stammer, but I was a good writer. And in the first thing I had to write in speech communications class was the professor said, just write a speech on how to make something, just how to make something, anything. And wise that I was. Can I say that on Disney? That I was. I wrote a little speech on the assembly and disassembly of your average squirt gun, and I read it straight face, and the students cracked up. They just thought it was the funniest thing they ever heard. And she called me over and she said, "You're good at this. You should do this." And that's all I needed to hear. So from that point, from being very shy and feeling restrained, I just was spring-loaded and just went at everything that I was afraid of, and which was first radio. And I remember the first time I was live on the air, I couldn't feel my arms from the elbows up. I went numb, completely numb. I was reading the news. I couldn't feel a thing. And then by the time I got to Chicago, I was like, I thought I was a real hotshot. I thought I knew everything. So, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, and so let's kind of go back to your first kind of major role. You take it. Now, let's go back first. You take a stage name. Is it true that your stage name Morgan was from Morgan Le Fay, from King Arthur?
Well, yeah. The thing is, when I had those jobs in college, I was on the air at 2 radio stations in DeKalb, Illinois, at the same time, and for some reason, the commercial station said, "Well, you're going on the air tonight, but you have to have a different name. We don't care what it is. Like, that's going to fool everybody," or they were even paying attention. I don't know. So I had to make an instantaneous choice, and I remember reading that story when I was 12, thinking, how cool is that? Because the Morgan character that's being played out on the Sci-Fi Channel is clearly different than the one I read. I mean, and there's this is an archetypical figure that comes up in myths and legends all over the place, and there are many different aspects of this character. But the way I read it when I was 12 was that this is a woman who made her own choices and created her own reality. And how cool was that for somebody who was so shy and such a nerd, someone who could create this illusionary, who could do these things. So I just, without thinking, said Morgan. So I was Morgan that night. So on the way out of college, I sent out resumes with photos. And first I sent out Cindy Sikorsky and didn't hear anything back. And then Cindy Morgan went out shortly after, and Cindy Morgan got the job. So Cindy Morgan went to work, and that was it.
Yeah, so let's kind of start with that first really major motion picture role, because coming from your background, it sounds like Lacey was, a bit of a stretch. What was the
interest? I'm reading the script going, well, this is so not me. I got nothing to lose here, so I'll just go in and do what I want. Well, they like that, apparently. And it wasn't until I went to the final audition and I looked at the call sheet and I saw I was the only one reading for that character that day. I went, oh my God, these guys are taking this seriously. They've lost their minds. What am I going to do? And I walked out into the parking lot and I went, oh, gee, I thought, all right, just pull it together. Just focus on one thing, just one thing. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to focus on who I'm reading with and pray to God it's a man this time and make him sweat. And that's all I did. And when I saw Doug Canny sweating, I knew I had the job.
Well, and it looked like one of those films that I could only imagine had to be a fun movie to make. And look, like some of the other comedies of the late 70s and early 80s, I think things like Blazing Saddles, it possibly couldn't even get made today.
No, because some of the political details are very specific to the time that they were made. So some of the jokes are specific to that point in time. Whereas Caddyshack, I know you've heard probably the script was just kind of tossed aside, and everybody, on both films, I've got to tell you the truth, I just stopped reading the script and the call sheet and what we were shooting that day because it really didn't matter anymore. I would just show up for work and go, all right, what? Now what are we doing? And okay, you got some sides and some pages to look at just to give me a guideline, just so I know what's going on today. Because on Caddyshack, it was a damn free-for-all. And thank God I had already learned to run camera and sound and knew who belonged there and who didn't and where the scene was and where the camera was following. Because I did get some acting classes really quickly, thank God. One of them was improvisation, which helped enormously. Because coming from broadcasting, I had to learn one thing that I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to listen. I know that sounds hard to believe. And let the other person take the lead. And that was important. Harvey Lembeck, my improv coach, said, Morgan, shut up. Stop it right there. Stop talking. You're going for the joke. Stop it. I go, yeah, but I'm funny. I don't want to hear it. Stop talking. And he said, you're the straight. Set up the joke. And and that actually is kind of important. You wouldn't have, I hate to go way back, but you wouldn't have Abbott without Costello. And I mean, you need, there has to be the audience's point of view, which is the straight, pretty much in the film. And luckily, these guys were just so damn brilliant. All I had to do was listen.
Well, I mean, you're working with legends of comedy and the SNL grads. I mean, Bill Murray and Chevy Chase. So you probably didn't have much of a choice as to just sort of let them just go and do their thing.
Oh, I had choices. No. Let me back you up there for a second. First of all, as soon as I knew who I was working with, I stopped watching SNL because I didn't want to be intimidated on the set. I just wanted to go in and react without choking. I just wanted to do my job. And these guys are strong, very strong. But some of the best work I did when I was going head to head with a couple of men. And it is what it is. When that camera's rolling, it's an even playing field. So anything goes.
Yeah, and obviously some of the scenes that you had with Chevy Chase are the ones that are most memorable. How much of that was, well, you were talking about scripted and just you and Chevy just going off and doing your thing?
Whole bunches were Chevy doing his thing and me going, why am I here? The piano song that you were going to sing, I don't know if you've heard this already, but I was we're doing love scenes, which are not romantic, in a house in South Florida. Then we got the giant Klieg lights on over there, and it's like maybe 100 degrees in the house plus humidity. And after 2 days, you're really tired and little fed up with the whole thing. And I'm getting my makeup touched up because it's hot. And Harold Ramis comes over and said, come over here and sit down. I went, what? Why? And he goes, just come here and sit down and ask Chevy to sing you a love song. I said, fine. We're burning daylight, but fine. And I sat down and said, sing me a love song. And I look at him and he launches into the song. He snorts the salt, throws the tequila, he's singing. And out of the corner of my right eye, I can see the red light on the camera. I went, those guys are filming this. And I went, God. And I looked in front of me. I saw the tequila, and I took a shot, and it was tequila. And we just did the scene. I mean, you can tell that reaction. You can't make up a reaction like that. And then when we were doing the acupuncture scene, some of that was in the script, but a whole bunch of it wasn't. We had a couple of conversations previous to this, and they were passionate conversations. And then we went to shoot the scene, and then he decided it would be a funny thing to dump a bottle of baby oil on my back. But if you look at my eyes, I'm thinking, I'm not going anywhere, pal. I'm staying right here. So do what you want, but I'm not leaving. And there was the scene. And honestly, it was the best work we did. And I'm so proud of it. I got to tell you.
Well, it's still, we'll talk about this later. It still sort of holds its own all these years later. But how does that gap from Caddyshack and beyond eventually lead to Tron, which comes out in a couple of years?
It does. It actually all made sense. There actually is a tie. While I was studying comedy improv before I went to Caddyshack with Harvey Lembeck, he had 3 classes of 24. And I was in the bottom class of 24, but in his master's class, I was dating one of the guys in the master's class of 24. And in that class, they had John Ritter, Penny Marshall, and Robin Williams. It was a good class. And I was dating one of the guys from that class. And he took me to lunch with some director for some cartoon he was doing. This is before Caddyshack, I believe. And I'm eating lunch and I'm listening to them talk about this cartoon. And it sounds great, but I was eating lunch, so I really wasn't paying much attention. And I didn't work for a long time after Caddyshack. Not really sure why, but I was told I wouldn't work again. I don't know what the real reasons were, but I had very few auditions for the next year. Actually, literally, I had more lunches with my agents than auditions, which another thing I wasn't real happy about. I changed that situation right quick. But suddenly I get this call to not come in and read for a casting person, but to come in and be put on tape with Jeff Bridges for the director, which is bypassing all the middle ground. And I didn't know why. I just went, okay. So I came in to be put on tape with Jeff Bridges. And clearly a lot of Tron, a lot of the dialogue out of context makes little or no sense to the average bystander. Even now, you really have to be into it to understand what's going on. But I figured, okay, here I am. There's Jeff. He looks nice. And there's a director, and they got a camera. I know what to do. So I was on tape, and that was Tron. The lunch I was at with that guy I was dating he was originally set to play Tron. A year and a half, 2 years later, he was out. I was in. And many years later, I said, was that Tron that we went to lunch for? He goes, yes. And I've forgiven you, and I'm never taking another half lunch again. I said I didn't know, and I had no idea. So it was at that lunch the director Steven Lisberger saw me and had cast me. It was down to me and Deborah Harry without thinking. He had his vision in mind of who was going to play Yori and Laura.
So when you come in, I mean, look, this nothing like a film like this had ever been done before.
No.
How do they sort of explain this probably very foreign concept to you?
Foreign would make it easier. At least I'd have a reference point. There was nothing that had ever been done before. The first thing that was shown to me was a computer animation. I don't know if you've ever taken an Art 101 class, but the human figure's done with ovals to make the upper arm, the lower arm, the upper leg, the lower. It was a series of ovals that looked like a puppet figure, and it said, "We're going to animate like this." And I'm looking at that going, okay, fine. And then, I'd worked green screen before because I'd done the weather, so I knew what that was. But this was not green screen or blue screen. This was shot completely in black and white, which didn't matter because either way, there's nothing there. I read this story, and again, I just took it for what it was. Just like when I worked in radio and I would get a commercial, or when I worked in television, I would get a commercial. I just took it at face value. Walked in the studio ready to go to work. And I would get a description from Steven Lisberger, and he'd say, you're running from here to there, and that's Tron. And I'm working with good actors, Bruce Boxleitner, Jeff Bridges. We got along great. So I found the reality in their eyes. That's where the reality was, because there was nothing there. And also working with David Warner, and Barnard Hughes. I mean, when David Warner told me I was going to die, I believed him. He's a very powerful actor, and Barnard is charming. So the only time I took issue with it is when, I came in, again, threw away the script. It didn't matter. I came into work one day and Steven Lisberger said, okay, today you're on the Solar Sailor, you're on the Game C, you're flying it, Morgan, go. I went, all right, I got to stop you right there. What are you talking about? There's nothing here. I don't want to be the one to say it, but there's nothing here. This is a black warehouse. The sounds, it was a sound stage, which is like an empty warehouse, painted black, solid black. There's nothing there. There's a little black riser with steps to it, and on it is a black banquet table with nothing on it but black felt. What do you want me to do? Exactly. And he said, just do anything. The Disney artist will paint it in later. So I looked down at the black banquet table and said, I better see something, because the audience knows when you're lying. And in my mind's eye, I saw a soundboard, which I know how to run. I again, going back to the sound engineer experience. So in my mind, I saw a soundboard, and this soundboard was moving this forward. The only time we ran into a snag is when Steven Lisberger came over and said, all right, the three of you are looking in three different directions. What can we do about that? And I said, again, thank God for all the broadcast background. I said, can you just get one of our grips to take a roll of tape? They've all got tape, gaffer's tape, and just drag it on a rope across the floor. Well, at least we'll have something to focus on. We'll have the same point of focus. And that's what we did. I mean, it was pretty much rudimentary, but talk about doing something analog that exploded into something else. It was amazing that we did it, and it worked out as well as it did.
Well, and you really portrayed the same but different characters. I kind of look at Tron as it's kind of like Wizard of Oz. Dorothy was in her world in black and white. This other world exists on the grid. How do you approach these two characters? I mean, they were sort of mirrors of one another, but they're also a little bit different as well.
I had to find something in me that could possibly, in my world, ever do these things and then amplify it. Yori was extremely difficult because she wasn't a human being. Yori was, and so I had to just reach into my frame of reference and dig up the closest thing to it, which would be, if you look at the old movies, someone who grew up in a desert island, who really didn't have any interaction with the outside world, so didn't have social skills and didn't understand certain things. So she had an innocence about her, and yet she had part of Laura's memory, and I just had to make some quick choices because there was nothing there that I could grip onto. Steven Lisberger had a really strong vision in his mind, and it's a good thing he did, because he held really hard to it, and that's, again, why I think it held up over 30 years. A lot of the dialogue I was agonizing over. I would say, Steven, I can't say this. My friends are coming to the movie. I can't say this. and he'd say, and I'd say, and I can't understand what I'm saying. And how is anybody else going to understand? And he goes, well, the movie's not for them. I said, well, they may not come to the movie, Steven. And you don't win a fight about dialogue when you're arguing with the director who's also the writer. So just forget that. So there's a line in the film that I choked on. And remember I told you can't lie to the audience? There's a line I choked on, and the audience cracks up every time they hear it. And now it's become my favorite line in the movie, because you can't lie to the audience. It's the one line I just said, I can't say this. And he said, say it anyway. And it ended up in the film. It's the line, oh, Tron, I knew there wasn't a circuit built that could hold you. Inside, I'm like, oh, no, I can't say this. And the audience knows I'm choking on it, and they laugh because I'm not committing to the line. I mean, I'm not making it my own. I'm fighting it, and they sense it. They know something's wrong, and it gets them every time. So it's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, too, the movie was decades ahead of its time. I mean, you're talking about concepts that now we understand, but, back then, you had no idea what you were talking about.
No, of course. And the iPad 3 just came out yesterday. Yeah, at that point, I mean, I said I had some little, at the time, tech background, and these were all, he made concepts out of simple ideas, technical ideas. They became concepts and elaborated them into almost a spiritual belief, which actually worked out in the film. A lot of people, where Caddyshack is a lifestyle to a lot of people, Tron is more of a spiritual attachment. Just by talking to the people I meet, it really means a lot to them on a much deeper level. So it's interesting to see.
Well, you think about, and look, this is very early on, sort of in the beginning of this sci-fi rage. Just a few years earlier, they're making Star Wars. They think it's just going to be sort of a Western in outer space. Do you kind of, as you're doing this, as you're making this film, do you realize at some point you're doing something special or that you're going to be talking about it 30 years later?
While we were shooting the film, no, because if I was thinking thoughts like that, I'd be in a lot of trouble every day. I have to really think about where I am and what I'm doing. But afterwards, when I was doing the press junket and I did the Tonight Show and I traveled around the country and was explaining it to people and I saw it in Time magazine, I did realize something, what special was going on, because the concept was so innovative. It wouldn't have had the impact it did. Tron didn't have the expected impact that people were hoping for at the time. And it actually, people just pushed it to the side for the longest time, which, you never know how it's going to be received. But I think the fact that Steven Lisberger held strong to his ideals is one of the reasons it held up over time. It wasn't a McMovie. He really had a vision and he held to it. And then that's where the art of show business comes in. Having a real strong vision, and meaning it, it's not just about ego. It's really what he believed, and it really transferred through. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Well, what about for you? You talked about shooting against this black background with gaffer tape. What's your reaction when you first see the film? Because I have to imagine there's no dailies because of the CGI and hand animation.
Dailies. It took them like 8 or 10 months. This footage. I mean, just this was labored. I mean, where there were just layers and layers and layers of cells that were put together to make each frame of footage. So many months in post production. So when I finally saw it, I was just, I didn't know what to think. It wasn't anything like what I saw. I saw the Sid Mead graphics. I saw what it was going to look like, but I wasn't at all prepared for it. And again, I'm not a big fan of watching my work anyway. So I was floored. I really just didn't know what to think. And Carson asked me, "What did you think when you saw it put together?" And all I could say was I was stunned. I didn't know. And now when I see it, I just love it. It's beautiful. And in the Blu-ray, it's gorgeous. And it has a charm and a warmth and an impact that holds up. And I like it a lot.
Yeah, and we were talking before about sort of now in 2012, you have a way to get direct and personal, immediate reactions from fans. Yes. Back in 1982, you don't have that sort of direct connection. You don't really know right off the bat what that response is going to be. Nothing.
All I'm hearing is filtered through my agents, managers, and attorneys, and bless their little hearts and souls. A lot of the time, it wasn't accurate, the feedback I was getting. Not even close. I'm really glad that these two films did as well as they did. You got to know that after, first doing Caddyshack and not being allowed to work for a couple years, you're an attorney. And you want to go, where was my agent? Where was my attorney? Where was anybody? There was nobody. And then Tron not being as received as well as everyone had hoped. 30 years later, you got to know I'm smiling just a little bit, Lou.
Of course.
And just a little. I'm not saying much. I'm letting other people do my talking for me because I think that's more polite. But you got to know I'm smiling.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that always fascinated me about the film, we talked about how most of it was shot against this black background, but there was that sort of our side of the world stuff. You guys actually shot over at Livermore Labs, and for those of people who don't know, it's a nuclear weapon national security lab.
That's right.
You wonder
how did we get there?
How did Disney get to go, to shoot a film there?
That's a damn good question. I suggest you ask somebody at Disney. I have no idea. I had somebody ask me a couple of weeks ago. So, honest to God, they said, "So were you given a map of the place?" I said, "Listen to me carefully. They don't give you maps of this place. You go in, you get on an elevator, and you go like 10 floors underground. There are no maps. There's no online, no. The fact that we were in there at all, believe me, I understood how controlled the environment was just by the way the nervousness of the people around me. I was picking up on it, and to the point where I don't know if you've heard the story, but at one point there was a blocked off area. There was a little taped up. There was a raised piece of tape about 6 inches high. It was blocked off. But my makeup trailer was over there, and I had to go there for something. So I'm like, these guys are busy. I don't know. They're going to be tied up for another 20 minutes talking to each other. So I'm going to go to the makeup trailer. So I make a shortcut across this tied up area, and everybody goes, "Stop!" And there's like the whole place stops and freeze. and I'm freezing. And then these techs come running out and it helped me back through and to get my shoes, and they're decontaminating. I'm like, holy Christ, what I just, excuse me, okay, get that out. Just what I just said. I mean, what did I just step in? Literally, not just figuratively. So it was, it was exactly what you say it was. And I have no idea how we got there or what we were doing there, but I know we would just, again, we were taken to it. And people were asking me these questions, and these are good questions. Well, did you get to meet people? Are you kidding? I mean, I knew they were there because when I stepped in the wrong place, they all flew out. But no, they don't chat you up. They don't give you a map. They don't, you don't get it. Somebody actually asked, did you get a tour? I said, are you kidding me? Did you not hear what I just told you? You don't get it. This is not a place that gives tours. I have no idea why I was there, but it was great to have been there. And what a great group of people. They were very kind. They were very accommodating. Great place to work, but clearly a controlled environment.
Yeah, I kind of picture in my mind how that conversation goes. Somewhere from Disney says, listen, we want to make a Disney movie about a guy who goes into a video game, and we want to do it in this nuclear weapon security lab.
Well, again, the cool thing about and the thing that causes a lot of sense of responsibility about the entertainment industry is that it does carry that much weight. When Caddyshack, I'm still doing the book on, I'm trying to finish it on my app crack, the book on the making of Caddyshack. Those guys at Warner Brothers, Orion Films at the time, were given the keys to the state of Florida pretty much. Those water sequences were shot in 3 different counties from what I can tell. And we were just shooting aimlessly. The golf course was blown up. They gave these guys gasoline. I've got photos of the gasoline truck pumping it into mining it. They mined the golf course with gasoline, and the people who owned the golf course were sent to a party. They said, no, you're not going to blow up our golf course. And then they're watching the news at the party, and they watch their golf course being blown up. The next day, they painted it green, and they blew it up again. I've got photos of the tarp and the gasoline truck and the 3-story fireball. This is not imaginable. So the fact that somebody said, this is Disney, we'd like to shoot there, well, let's see what we can work out. Control your comings and goings. So the entertainment industry it does wield a lot of power. This is a media-determined society for sure. So, but again, it also carries, I would hope, in some cases at least, a lot of responsibility because people believe what they see here, and you want to make sure that it's at least accurate, if not responsible. Yeah,
and it's interesting, these two roles, again, literally worlds apart, but I think the films, but the films themselves are somewhat parallel because they do stand the test of time, and they're being introduced to new generations and still being enjoyed by those of us who saw it in the theaters. And for the most part, other than maybe the close, you can watch both of them with really no sense of them being dated per se.
I know what you're saying. It's astonishing, but the coolest thing ever. I mean, that they're holding up over time. I've known better actors, more beautiful women, people who had better business contacts than I did, and how lucky for me to have been in both. So very, very lucky.
So as time goes on, and you hear about the making of Tron Legacy, what's your sort of reaction initially when you hear about that?
I wanted to see what they were going to do. It was interesting, and there were all kinds of opinions and camps and people with storylines because it's 30 years later picking up the story, and there was in between there was a video game that was made that in the sci-fi world, people keep saying, well, you're in the movie, you're not in the movie, you're dead, you're alive, what do you think? And I just keep smiling, going, it's science fiction, anything's possible. I got time, I got all day. Remember what I said when I was on the set of Caddyshack? I got all day. Take your time. So we'll see. I thought it was a visual feast. It's interesting to see where the story's going to be taken. But the important thing to always remember is these films belong to the people, the fans who kept it alive for 30 years. Yeah, there's a whole new core market. When I go to appearances, where before my demographic was specifically 79% male, I know because I get the stats. Now I'm meeting young women, I'm talking about in their late 20s or early 20s, who love the Yori character. Mm. This is astonishing and incredibly cool to me because, as you say, a whole new generation of people who love the film.
Yeah, and she's a strong woman in a science fiction film that 30 years later is still sort of, look, your role kind of transcends the film. It became very much sort of an iconic and sort of a cultural touchstone, especially for women.
I know, and how glad was I to have been part of that. As far as Lacey goes, a lot of guys, go on and on about how Lacey walked around, and it was clear when I wear that Fila shirt, Lacey was flawless. But let me tell you, that was a political statement. Women had just literally or figuratively burned their bras. So again, I made strong choices for Lacey because Lacey had it was shot in 1979 and women had just fought for all these rights. So Lacey came from not a, what can I get away with? I want to get into trouble kind of a mentality, more like a strong, okay, I just came into my own. Now I'm going to take it all. So that's who Lacey was. So hopefully, again, a strong character and coming from a position of strength, no matter how it plays out, I think is always a good thing to do. I don't know, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's, the characters, and certainly, look, the film itself was important. John Lasseter, who heads, obviously, Disney's animation, said without Tron, there would be no Toy Story. And I think the strength of the characters had a lot to do with the success and the longevity of the film as well.
Well, people don't fall in love with graphics. They fall in love with, they form an emotional attachment with the characters in the films. So yeah, thank you for that. And that is kind of important. And graphics are gorgeous.
Right, and that emotional, I saw that emotional attachment firsthand. I saw it at the Expo, I saw it at MegaCon, when guys and girls are lined up to meet you and talk. So other than maybe asking if you're single or if you like skiing or bullfighting, the reference, what do they say? What do they say when they come up to you?
I can see all kinds of thoughts. I mean, I'm reading all kinds of thoughts going across it. Well, mostly the young women who come up because they like Yori and Tron, unabashedly they really, really are so glad that there's a character that they can relate to that makes them feel empowered and strong. And that is such an honor to have played 30 years later, to have people reacting to that. They feel empowered, they feel strong, and they're so happy. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing to see that I can't even put into words the emotional response. It's just wonderful to see. And the guys who come up have a few more agendas, but again, it's sort of cool to see, and again makes me smile that they just and it is a good feel. It's a wonderful feeling, and I just shake my head, going, I must have done something right there. So this is pretty cool, and very much enjoying it. And I just think that nothing changes over time. I mean, it just lets you know that nothing really changes. So that's why. I mean, I hate to compare it. Things that people fall in love with that came before Tron and Caddyshack obviously will still continue to hold up over time.
Yeah, and look, the Tron franchise looks as though it's going to continue for years to come. There's an animated series. There's talk of another film. Yeah, maybe Yori will finally make her reappearance. But
there's plenty of Yori live sites all over the darn place.
I was going to say, Yori has her own, cult fan following online.
Yeah, yes, she does. I think it's, again, this was a case. You want to know how it happened, Lou? Had I actually been in Tron Legacy, I don't think this phenomenon would have occurred. Because I would have just been part of the package, part of the franchise. But because Yori was not included, suddenly a man from Sweden at an event I was at a year ago said it most clearly, most articulately. He said, "You're part of our family. Where did you go?" Pretty much. That's the feeling a lot of people have. So had Yori been included, it wouldn't have created, again, this emotional reaction, so that people wouldn't have been asking about the department where it was. And because people ask, again, it's most polite to let other people do your speaking for you in a case like this, and more effective. And more people asked, and then websites started, and this was picked up by the press, who were kind enough to reiterate the question and acknowledge it. So it just gave it life. It breathed life into this phenomenon, which I'm still shaking my head about, going, cool. and thank you. What am I going to say? Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy.
Absence truly does make the heart grow fonder.
Thank you. That's the most beautiful way of saying it. Absence has made the heart grow fonder. May I quote you, Lou?
Absolutely. I stole that line from someone, but feel free to attribute it to me.
Well, yeah, I'd say that really says it well. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
But you have a lot of other things going on too, and you alluded before, has the From Catholic School to Caddyshack book, is it coming soon? Is it something we can start
rewrites. Because you're going to love this. You're an attorney, so get this. I have the rights for the purposes of the first inception of the book, which is going to be a coffee table book. The reason is I have the rights to 1,700 behind-the-scenes images.
Wow.
For the purposes of the first book. It's 80% written. After I turned in an 80% draft, I went into rewrites. So my literary agents took the book and spread it out on their conference room table and rearranged it in another order. So I've got my version, their version, and fleshing it out to do. That's 3 things at once, and I've just got to finish it. All I've got to do is look at the picture and tell a story, just like I'm telling you today. And therein lies the challenge. So I'm trying to put this through line to the story. I have to pick a lane here. I have to get a storyline so that it has continuity throughout, and then integrate their ideas, my ideas, and the storyline. And I asked my literary agent, who was also a good attorney, I said, am I going to be sued? He goes, oh yeah, just tell. He said, just tell the truth. I said, no problem. Gotcha. Because I was there. He said the interesting thing is because you were there, you have a First Amendment right to tell your story. And I treat it this way. I mean, yeah, there was a lot going on in the set, as I'm sure you know, and I'm sure you've heard. But I try to tell the story in the same way that Caddyshack was presented, lighthearted. There are a couple of issues I'll address directly. Yeah, it was the biggest party atmosphere ever. Yeah, we did a lot of things that were specific to 1979, but I'm not glorifying a lot of the partying because within 1 month after the film, our favorite person on the film, producer Doug Kenny, died. So everybody adored him. He was everybody's favorite person. So I do address what went on. I do talk about it, but then I go on and tell it with a lighthearted, okay, all that aside, this is what went on. Yes, Rodney was a nervous wreck. Yes, the 2 of us were having lunch, because they would just have lunch whenever the spirit moved them. There would be food rolling out. We'd sit down. We would eat. Yes, we were up all night partying. Yeah, they took the golf cart keys away from us. Why? We were driving around the green in the middle of the night because we didn't see a problem with that. And when they took the keys away, don't do that to somebody like me because I learned how to hotwire them in 5 short minutes. And we were still driving around in the golf course in the middle of the night. And yes, then the next day we would roll through because makeup, hair, and wardrobe were in the same building where we were staying, like some kind of, it's actually now a dorm for FAU, Florida Atlantic University. It was like a big dormitory. So we would just roll out of bed, run through makeup, hair, and wardrobe, and just get scooted back out onto the set. Okay, now what? So yeah, that went on for 6 weeks. You bet. The longest and best party I ever went to. So all the other things aside, it was an astonishing opportunity and so amazing to have been there. It was pretty cool. And Tron too. Loved it. I loved doing it. It was a lot more serious than the Caddyshack. It wasn't the party carnival atmosphere. Let me tell you that. We shot on the Disney lot. And us having lunch in our Tron costumes with all the studio suits around us is pretty interesting. And they would show up down in the set to watch us work, and I'm like, guys, there's nothing going on here. I'm going to run from here to there and say something. So there's nothing to see here, but okay, hang out if you must. There's really, it's not as, there really wasn't, it wasn't visually. And again, you would think in Caddyshack, the grips and the crew was laughing because people say, were they laughing all the time? I've got photos of them falling asleep on the grip truck. They weren't paying any attention to us. They thought we were smart Alex who were out of control, and we were. So the fact that either of these films saw the light of day and did what they did is a darn miracle, and happy and lucky to have been a part of them.
Well, I can see why as anxious as we are to see the book, I can see why it's being delayed because you do have a lot of other stuff going on.
Well, I do have other things going on, and then there's a rewrite. I mean, I understand what they're saying. They took it and put in another through line, so I'm like, fine. I can integrate your concepts, but I still have to have a story. You guys, this is not a testimonial. This actually is a story. So I'm working on it, and I had to reprint it. Oh, and then I had the joy of having my apps crash and my iPad and and then loaded it into a PC. And my graphic designer is a wonderful person, one of my best friends on the planet. And she's so patient with me. She's like, okay, I got it. Just send it to me. And so she's a great graphic designer, and she's she's an editor. She works at a publishing house in New York. So I've got great people I'm working with again. So I'm just lucky. I just really lucky to be working with these people. So yeah, it's going to be done. But what a good time to get it out than during Tron's 30th anniversary. I think that would be a good time for stars to collide. What do you think?
Absolutely. I know a lot of, but people can also, and I think this is what I love, is that you're very accessible. People can find you if they go to your website at cindy-morgan.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. You do a lot of events too. You do D23, you do the megacons, and you can find out about other events you have coming up as well.
Sure. Yes. I'll be at WonderCon next week and Comic-Con this summer. And Comic-Con, have you seen Comic? You were talking about MegaCon. Have you seen Comic-Con yet?
This may be the year I finally take the plunge.
Oh boy, I'm going to talk to you after you come. It's an athletic event. You better be in good shape, stay hydrated, and have your wits about you, because it's quite the event. But again, if someone is active in the industry and you are, let me just say, if you're active in the industry, this is the place to go. So yeah, I'm going to be at Comic-Con this year, I believe. So yeah, it's something to see. You got to see it to believe it.
Awesome. Well, hopefully people who are listening will head out to check you out there. They'll also check out cindy-morgan.com. Cindy, listen, you were fortunate enough to land not one, but 2 roles of a lifetime. Fans continue to enjoy your work. They line up to meet you, hopefully for years to come. I can't thank you enough. 30 years in the making this interview finally happens. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me today.
Well, Lou, you're a sweetheart, and how charming for you to put it that way. Thank you so much, and let's see how this year shakes out. Then you'll have to do the follow-up interview. That ought to be interesting.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Lou, for your time too.
Thanks. It's time for the Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I'll ask you a question about Walt Disney World history, maybe a little bit of trivia about a current or former attraction or show, maybe play a random sound clip or quote a line from an attraction or show and ask you to identify where in the world you may have heard that clip. The winner will be selected at random from all the correct entries for a chance to win a Disney prize package. But before we get to this week's question, let's go back to last week, go over the question and the answer, and randomly select our winner. So as you know, last week, we mentioned a restaurant in the show In World Showcase that was located on the 2nd floor of the pavilion, and I already gave you Bistro de Paris. So last week's question asked you to simply name each of the other World Showcase sit-down restaurants that were located on the 2nd floor of the building in the pavilion. So again, other than Bistro de Paris in France, the other 2 were both located in Japan. It was Teppen Edo and Tokyo Dining. And again, we took all the correct entries, and all of you got them correct, and drew one random winner for a prize package that consisted of all 6 audio tours of Walt Disney World on digital download, as well as a $25 Disney gift card, so you could go over, enjoy some of those restaurants, or maybe some shopping on the World Showcase Promenade as well. And last week's winner is Molly Warren. So Molly, please send me your address. I'll get those guides and the gift card out to you right away. Thanks again to everybody who played last week. If you didn't win, that's okay, because here comes this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week. So, of course, this week's show is all about Tron, where we talk to Cindy Morgan. Tron Uprising is starting on Disney XD this week. Really excited to see that franchise continue on TV on a weekly series. So, speaking of Tron, before the Tron-O-Rail, the Tron overlay-themed monorail, came to Walt Disney World to promote the Tron Legacy film in 2010, there were plans for another, different Tron experience in the Walt Disney World theme parks. So the question for you this week is to tell me where and what it was supposed to be. Just name the theme park and the type of experience that was planned. Email your answers to contest@wdwradio.com by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, June 10th, and I will once again draw a random winner for a prize package that consists of all 6 of my audio tours of the Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World on digital download, and a very special Tron Vinylmation. So again, email your answers to contest@wdwradio.com. Tell me what and where the original different Tron experience was supposed to be in the Walt Disney World theme parks way back when. Good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks again for taking the time and tuning in this and every week. Thanks also to my guest, Cindy Morgan. I'll post links in this week's show notes where you can find out more about Cindy, as well as some of her upcoming appearances as well. Speaking of events, I'll be heading up to New York City this week to speak at Blog World and New Media Expo. Also going to be having a meet on Saturday, June 9th, starting off in Bryant Park. So if you're up and in the area, please come by and say hi. You can find out more about this and upcoming events, including Meets of the Month in Walt Disney World and our very special event, which is going to kick off Epcot's 30th anniversary celebration this fall, our private dinner and show at what I like to call the American Adventurers Club. That's going to be Friday evening, September 28th. Tickets are on sale now. I can tell you it is going to be a very fun, very special event. Great way to kick off Epcot's 30th anniversary. Other events coming up, not just in Walt Disney World. Again, you can find all those on the events page by visiting WDWRadio.com and clicking on the events tab. While you're there, be sure and check out our blog, videos, discussion forums, and lots more. Don't forget, I love hearing from you. So if you have a question you want me to answer on the show, you can email me at lou@WDWRadio.com. Call the voicemail at 407-900-9391. Please keep the conversation going by commenting the show notes. Please also come by, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I comment and post a lot there. Also have some late updates on some things that are going on. On Twitter, I am at Lou Mongello. Same thing, Facebook.com/Lou Mongello. You can subscribe there as well. In addition to the podcast and the videos and the blog, be sure and join us live every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for WDW Radio Live and the WDW Newscast, where we talk about this week's Walt Disney World news in a live, interactive chat discussion format. Don't worry if you can't catch it live, that's okay. I'll post the videos on the blog, on our YouTube channel. You should come by and subscribe over at youtube.com/WDW Radio, and I'll post the audio in the iTunes feed as well. Quick thanks to my partners and sponsors, including Mousefan Travel. They're not only my authorized and recommended travel provider, it's who I use. It's who I'm using when I go out to Disneyland for Destination D this summer. And whether you're coming to Walt Disney World or on a Disney cruise or Adventures by Disney, visit mousefantravel.com for a great level of personal service, all available discounts, all at no additional cost to you. When you're coming to Walt Disney World, you want to stay right in the heart of Disney, have access to great restaurants like Il Molino and Blue Zoo and Shula's and Kimonos and lots more. And of course, the Heavenly Beds. Visit swananddolphin.com. And maybe you want something a little bit bigger. Bring in the extended family, some friends. You want a home with your own master bedroom or game room or kitchen, pools, and spas. AllStarVacationHomes.com has more than 150 within just a couple of miles of Walt Disney World. And if you want some Disney magic delivered every other month right to your front door, you can go to CelebrationsPress.com. You can subscribe to Celebrations Magazine, order back issues. You can also get it now. Every back issue is also available in digital format on your iPhone or iPad. Quick link to the iTunes store. Visit wdwradio.com/celebrations. As always, my friends, and you are my friends, whether we have met yet or not, all I ask is that if you like the show, please help spread the word. Let others know about it. Tweet out that you're listening. Share links on Facebook or Google Plus or Pinterest or other discussion forums. And please come by, rate and review the show over in iTunes as well. I am so excited for what the upcoming days and weeks and months have ahead for the show. Looking forward to sharing that with you as well. And I hope you wake up every day excited about what you're going to be doing and that you do something you love each and every day. You believe in yourself and your dreams, and always, always keep moving forward. So until next time, thank you all so very much for taking the time out of your day and your week to listen to the show and let me share my passion for Disney with you. I hope you have a great week, everybody. So until next time, see ya.
Lou Mongello, while I enjoyed your coverage of Star Wars again, I find your lack of Ashley Eckstein disturbing. May the Force be with you.
Hey Lou, it's Jen from Milwaukee, and I'm calling to share one of the songs I sing on my Disney vacation. Making memories will last forever, making memories that make you smile, making memories with the family, making memories in Disney World, yeah!
Hey Lou, it's Jamie from Chicago. I was just giving you a quick call to let you know we just got back home here to Chicago from Walt Disney World about half an hour ago. We had long afternoon of traveling. We had to make 2 planes. We had a connecting flight from Orlando to Atlanta, and then from Atlanta back to Chicago. So a lot of Disney people on the plane leaving, going back home. So everyone was kind of sad. You know, it's always sad to leave one of the most magical places on earth. But I did want to just to call and say again, thank you so very much for the trip. You and Becky were just, it was incredible. The, trip that we won from the 40-hour show, the things that we got to do, the resort we stayed at, Port Orleans French Quarter, it was just so beautiful. And just everything. The trip was awesome. We slowed down. We enjoyed things. We watched, shows and entertainers that we really never stopped to see before. We looked at details of things. We just took our time, and slowed down like you always say to do. I got to meet up with a lot of my WDW radio friends a couple nights there. I've had the pleasure and privilege to meet you and Deanna and the kids, and I sincerely thank you for taking some time that night to meet up with me and my mom and Kayla. It means more to me than you know, and I'm going to try not to cry. Just thank you again for a great trip. It truly meant a lot to us, and you're just the best. And I am so happy to call you my friend. And you and Becky did an amazing job. Thank you again. I will be posting a trip report later this week on the forums. So make sure you check that out. It will be under EOR79 as my screen name on the forums. And I've just got so much to share and so many pictures to share and stories and just, everything that we did. So, again, thank you so much. Kayla had a blast. My mom had a blast. It was a great trip.
You've got a friend in me.
Yeah. End of line.